Over, businesses can open, but we still do social distancing, and
Just make sure that
restaurants have to be at half capacity, or I don't know what they'll do,
yeah,
but
like it's not like so like how it is now. You can still go see people, but or like go to work and stuff, Mama.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's like they want you to like stay inside and you might not be allowed to travel
right,
this summer.
right.
And then so hopefully it's over like completely eradicated over by the time school starts, and then it will go back to normal.
All right, so I'm gonna do this so I can go home, okay?
Rainy, are we ready to go now? Are we ready to go? Yes, we are. It's hot in here. And then you go to Macy's one to get one more time today.
Is she? Good.
Yeah, before
Bye,
that,
Rainy.
before she goes to bed.
Come here,
she-
come here. And then you're gonna go with Elon, you know that. You know that, you good girl.
What kind of feeling?
Bye-bye.
Oh, okay.
So adorable.
And then we could take Rainy, have you seen one down with you?
Yep, okay. Oh, hi, I didn't even know I was live. Hi, Danielle. I didn't know I hit live yet, so I am. Oh, goodness, that's funny. So, hi, everyone. What are the lies you tell yourself? So that's what I had written on here. I was talking to my son. He came to see me. I'm in an exercise room right now just to get a little privacy from my kids. Because sometimes you have to kind of run away and hide. And then, of course, they come here. And that's exactly what happened. So I was thinking about this today, about the lies we tell ourselves, you know, like all the stories that we tell ourselves. And they can be so incredibly subtle. Hi, Heather. They can be so incredibly subtle, and really, you know, the place that I've gotten is to like say, hey, Bryn, is to say to myself, I just know there's stories in there. I may not know what they are, but I know they're in there. And I'm always needing to be aware that I have stories inside of me. And so, and like today I was talking to a friend and I said something about not being a techie. And I said, oh, there's one, yes, I haven't gone to school for IT, but I can learn technology and I learn what I need to learn when I need to learn it. And so I reframed that in the moment, and it felt so good. And it made me just think about, you know, I run into this with clients constantly that don't realize the stories that they're telling themselves and the lies that they're telling themselves that are in our subconscious that we're not aware of. And there's so many of them. And it's so important that we live in communities that help us work through these things, that we live in communities that support us and notice, well, that's really just a story you're telling yourself. You know, like a story I used to tell myself a lot was like, well, I'm a single parent. And so that meant all these limitations on me, that this is so important. It is, Bryn, so much so. I miss you. And so it's so important because, oh my God, it's endless. So there's ones where we can kind of know a little bit about, you know, like I've known that I've said to myself before, well, I'm a single parent, I can't do this. I used to tell myself I have challenging kids. And that meant certain things. It meant I didn't have time, I didn't have resources, I didn't have money, I didn't have all these things. I couldn't do things other people could do. That's just a thought that I had in my head. And that is so wrong, so wrong. And in fact, I've proven that to myself over this last year with all the fun, amazing things that I've done, all the travels that I've done, all the fun things I've done. Like, it's a completely different life that I'm living. And we get to choose that. I just decided I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, I'm just going to live wild and free. I just get to live as I choose. And so I just started doing, well, this is what I want to do. And you know what happened? Like, I've done an amazing job with my kids, and I'm a great mother. Like, I really know that, actually. And, but I also, what I've seen with me really focusing more on myself is that my kids respect me more. Like, they really I've given a lot to my kids, and in some ways they can be dependent on me. And I've just noticed that with me taking more time to myself, they are respecting me more, and they are reaching back for connection more versus me having to reach in for connection for them, if that makes sense. It's just been a really fascinating shift. And so me being able to look at my stories, and I do this with women constantly, and we as women have a ton of stories because we live in this patriarchal society that creates stories for us. The stories come from our culture. The stories come from generations of culture. And so they get ingrained in us as soon as we're born. They are in us. As that story, and so Bryn, you're talking about the stories that our parents and peers made us believe about ourselves and about life. It's exactly right. Like, that's the culture piece where, what happens to us as we're growing up is we get pigeonholed into a certain role, into a certain way of being, into a certain, she's this person in our family, she's the smart one, she's the dumb one, she's the one that's not so athletic, she's the, I have a good friend who just told herself she's not very smart her whole entire life, and she's actually incredibly smart. She just was never in the right environment. If someone's not athletic and they're in an athletic family, they get told a story gets created that they're not as good as, they're not as capable as other members of the family. Another story I used to tell myself is that good things happen to other people and not to me. So I had just created the story around, the good things happen to those around me, but not to myself. And then I just live that way and expect that. And this is one of the things that I just said to myself, no more. And Bryn, you probably know more than, as much as anybody, because you've seen me in my home, of how much I've changed in terms of the stories I tell myself and what I get to do, and how I'm just exploding and not really believing these ludicrous things about myself or about who I am or about how life has to be, that I get to you can just actually break through ideas you have about yourself that are not true. It's a total illusion, and you get to break through these things because these are only stories. And these are lies that we tell ourselves. And some of them are in our conscious mind, and some are in our subconscious mind. Some are not available to us. And so much change, complete night and day. Exactly, Bryn. You know so well. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that we have these lies, and we need to be really awake and alive to notice them, number one, but also number two, one of the things that I've done is just to know that I have them, and I'm just going to work on a different story constantly. I'm just going to create a new story, period. And it's that simple. I just get to create a new story. Hi, Kristen. And so that's what I've been working on, that I am capable. I can build a multi-million-dollar business. I can travel anywhere I want to. Not so much during Corona. I mean, I probably could, but it's a little bit harder. That I can have a life of my own and have amazing children, that I don't have to give up everything to my kids, that I can have a life of my own. Hi, Susan. And so I'm just creating this new story, and I see this with women all the time where we get stuck in this path and this pattern. And if I go back to family stuff, they want to put me back into that same old story. And I'm like, no, I'm in a whole new story of my life now. And that's the story that I've created. And so I've created this very new life for myself. And so I see this with parents all the time where they create a story around my kids are crazy, or I'm not a good parent is a really good one. I don't get this parenting thing. My kids don't, I'm not giving my kids the connection they need. And so I'm not a good parent. And that is a bunch of baloney. That story alone is what's causing them to actually, for for their children to not to feel them to get the connection they need. It actually started with the story itself. So these stories are so important, and the greatest gift that I have been able to walk into is to be able, again, just to know that I have these lies that I've been telling myself my whole life, and just and starting from new, like, what is the story I want to write now? And I started with looking at what are my dreams? What are my desires? What do I want to achieve? And I'm just walking towards that. And the old stories I would tell myself just fade away. And I walk into something new. It's just so brilliant how well it works. And I've done a ton of, like most people I know, have done so much work on themselves. And I've done a bunch of work on like offloading and mindset. And I think it's all valuable. And I think certain things work better for different people. But I have just found this to be incredibly helpful to me, to be able to just focus on my dreams and what feels good. That's the other piece. So I still give to my kids like crazy, but I also look at what feels good to me every day. What feels good to me? And I keep pursuing what feels good to me. And it's been a massive change, because in motherhood, we think that we have to give up so much. We think that we have to sacrifice so much for our kids. No one has ever told me, anyway, I don't think most women are told this, to really pursue what feels good to you, what makes your heart sing and what feels good, so that I'm nurtured as well, because I am a single parent and I don't have anyone else nurturing me. So it's really, I have to nurture myself and I have to focus on what feels good. And I have changed dramatically just by doing that. What feels good to do to make the next step to my dreams? What feels good to move forward towards my desires? And that has been an amazing formula to like just stop telling myself lies. It just like lets them fade away. It's amazing how well that works. So I just wanted to provide you with a new skill, with a way to help your life move forward and to really look at the lies that we tell ourselves, know that they're there, because our subconscious mind has implanted these implicit memories from childhood when we developed a sense of like not being good enough or not being heard and not being seen. And they're just there, and they stay with us in our brain and our body. And so we can actually shift those into something else and become a brand new person. And my kids see this dramatic change in me, and they're a little blown away by it, in fact. So yeah, I would love to hear your comments. Bryn, thanks so much for sharing with me today. And I would love to hear your comments, like, what's a lie that you tell yourself? You know, what's something that you've noticed is a really, really common thing that you tell yourself, that you would love to change, and that you can just shift by looking into, it oftentimes feels like the future, but it's really now. But you're shifting your mindset into a different now of what feels good and what your desires are. Because boy, we feel good when we're moving towards our desires and we're reaching our desires. Like, that feels amazing. And so that's what I encourage you to do, is to feel good, move towards your desires, and allow yourself to feel good and not to be on this road of sacrifice that we so often are taught to do as parents, especially as mothers. So I would love your feedback. Let me know what's valuable here today. Hi, Firad. I'm signing off right now, so you'll have to watch the replay. But thanks so much for being here, and I hope you have a good evening wherever you are in the world. All right, bye-bye.